Most people arrive where they intend to. Cora Whitfield arrived at the right territory, the right county, the right road, and the entirely wrong farm. She was the only one who found this manageable. The stage from Billings came through at mid-morning, raising a thin line of dust across the Dakota Flat that you could see for a mile before the coach itself appeared. October light, gold and clean, the sky that particular shade of blue this territory saves for autumn. The grass ran in every direction, unbroken except for the road and the fence lines strung out along it, and when the stage slowed at the Cedar Fork Junction, one woman stepped down. She had a bag, a coat, and a letter addressed to 1 Calvert Webb, Cedar Fork Road, Dakota Territory. Cedar Fork Road was 8 miles east. She did not know this yet. She stood at the junction and looked at the land. Wide sky, gold grass, a ranch at the end of the road with a fence line and a barn and the organized quality of a place managed by someone who paid attention. She picked up her bag and walked toward it because it was the nearest property and the stage was already gone and the wind was coming in from the north with the first real edge of the season in it. Eli Merritt was at the east fence when she came down the road. 35 years old, 200 Dakota acres, a man who had long since stopped expecting things to arrive from the direction of the road. He set down his post digger and watched her walk the full length toward him. She did not look at him. She looked at the field, the barn, the fence line, the irrigation channel blocked along the east side. She was doing what he did when he looked at a problem, assembling it before she touched it. She reached him, set her bag down, produced a letter. He looked at it, reached into his coat and produced his own. They read in silence. The Dakota wind moved through the grass. His letter described a woman named Pearl. Dark-haired, town-raised, 24, references from Billings. Her letter was addressed to Calvert Webb, Cedar Fork Road. He was Eli Merritt. Cedar Fork Road was 8 miles east. I ordered someone else, he said. She looked at the letter in his hand. Then at the road behind her, empty now, the stage long gone. The wind pushed through her coat with complete indifference to her situation. Then back at him. I can see that. The stage back doesn't run for 10 days. I have no money to wait on it elsewhere. A pause, brief and practical. I'll work your farm till you find her. Call it what it is. I need the roof and you need the hands. He studied her for a moment. Not the offer. Her. The way she had walked down that road reading his land before she ever spoke to him. The wind finding every gap in that thin coat. He looked at the north sky. Whatever he had been deciding, he decided it. Come in. Coffee first. We'll work the rest out. He picked up her bag himself and walked toward the house. She fell into step beside him and said nothing, which he found easier than he expected. They had not reached the porch when a sound came from the barn doorway, a full, genuine, helpless laugh. August Merritt came across the yard with his hand pressed to his chest, still laughing, his eyes wet. 71 years old, tall, white-haired, alive in a way that made him seem to take up more space than his frame suggested. 4 months. He managed. The man spent 4 months writing his list. He wiped his eyes. Hair color, height, town raised, practical. References from no fewer than 3 respectable persons. He shook his head at the sky. The Lord read the list and decided Eli needed more sense than he was showing. Grandpa, Eli said, I'm August Merritt. He was already extending his hand to Cora, warm and immediate. Eli's grandfather. The coffee is hot and you look like you've been on that stage since Tuesday. Inside, August set 3 cups on the table without ceremony and poured and put bread out. He asked Cora where she had come from. Sioux Falls, she said. Her father's land before that, 40 acres from when she was 12. School after, then the agency. And your family? My parents are gone and my sister has her own home now. She held her cup. Her husband's farm. She said it without drama. August heard what lived underneath it. He refilled her cup without asking. Eli sat across from her. August looked between them, At the quiet way Cora had set her cup down without marking the wood, as though she had been careful with other people's things for a long time, and at the way Eli had not once stopped being aware of exactly where she was, even when he was looking at his coffee. August picked up the bread and said nothing and was satisfied. "Pass the biscuits to your wife," August said to Eli. Eli's coffee went the wrong way. Cora very carefully did not look at anyone. "She is not my wife. She is at the wrong address. Pass her the biscuits anyway." Wrong address or not, she came down that road in this wind without once asking anyone to feel sorry for her. "That earns a biscuit on this property." Cora took a biscuit. She ate it without expression, though something around her eyes suggested she was working to maintain that expression with some effort. August watched them both and said nothing further and was content. It was late afternoon when hoofbeats came down the road. Calvert Webb was a broad man in a good coat, someone who moved through the world with the ease of a man whose arrangements had always worked out. He came through the gate and found Eli at the barn. Heard the stage came through. "My bride inside." "There was a mix-up with the files," Eli said. "Mix-up simple enough to sort. Webb's pleasantness had an edge underneath it. I'll take her now. She's staying the night." Eli's voice didn't rise. It went in the other direction. Quieter, the way a door closes before it locks. "In this territory, we don't pull a woman out of a warm kitchen at dark and put her on a horse because someone's impatient. You know that." Webb held his gaze. He understood leverage, and he was calculating whether he had any here. Eli stood in front of him without moving, his decision already made, waiting for the other party to accept it. "Tomorrow then. First thing." "Tomorrow," Eli said. Webb turned his horse and went back toward Cedar Fork, and Eli watched him until the road curved and the grass swallowed him. Then he stood there a moment longer in the October cold, thinking about the way Webb's eyes had moved to the house. Not to a person. To a thing. He went back inside. Cora was at the window. She was looking at the field, the blocked channel, the leaning fence post, the south row that needed to come in before the first frost, which in this territory could arrive without warning. She turned when Eli came in. Their eyes met. She had heard what happened by the barn. He could see that she had. Neither of them said anything about it. But something had shifted in the room, not comfort exactly, something more specific. An understanding that tomorrow was coming and that what happened before it arrived would matter. August set supper on the table. 3 plates. 3 cups. The lamp lit against the dark coming down over the Dakota grass outside. He looked at his grandson once across the table, just once, brief, and whatever he saw in Eli's face made him pick up his fork and start eating, content to let the rest find its own way. Webb came back at first light. Eli heard the hoofbeats before he saw him. He was at the barn and walked out to the yard center and stopped there, so Webb would have to halt before he reached the house. Agency contract. Webb pulled a folded paper from his coat and held it up. "I paid the fee. She comes with me this morning." "She's not going anywhere this morning," Eli said. "You don't have standing to say that on my contract." The kitchen door opened. Cora came down the porch steps into the yard. She had heard everything and had decided she would not be discussed at a distance. She looked at Webb. "I'll honor the arrangement. 3 days. I travel by wagon, properly, with my bag packed." "Today," Webb said. He stepped forward. Eli moved, 1 step, clean and immediate, until he was between them. He did not raise his voice. He did not reach for anything. He simply stood on his own ground and looked at Webb with eyes that had already finished the conversation. "My wagon brings her Thursday by noon. You don't like it, try moving me." Webb held that gaze long enough to take a full accounting of his options. Then he folded the paper and put it away. "Thursday at dawn. She's not at my gate. I'm bringing the sheriff." He wheeled his horse and rode back toward Cedar Fork hard enough to raise dust. August was on the porch with his coffee. "Thursday?" he said. "Thursday," Eli said and went back to the barn. Cora could not be idle. By mid-morning she had found the failing shelf bracket in the kitchen and fixed it with wire and a steady hand before anyone noticed she was doing it. Eli came in for water and looked at the shelf and looked at the bracket and went back out without a word. August found her in the kitchen after that and put flour on the counter with the gravity of a man beginning an important ceremony. "Dakota biscuits," he said. "There is a method." There was a method. Cora could not find it. The first batch came out dense and gray, heavy enough to serve as ballast. August picked one up, bit into it, chewed. "Well, they're terrible," she said. "They're committed," he said and took another bite. She laughed. Brief, surprised out of her. August looked pleased with himself. Eli had come down the hall from the north door and stood where the hallway met the kitchen. Flour on the counter. August eating something gray and dense with full diplomatic sincerity. Cora watching him with an expression she had not worn once since the stage had dropped her at the junction. He went back down the hall. August finished the biscuit without remarking on any of it. Later, while Cora was cleaning the flour from the counter, August put down his cloth and looked out the window at the field. "His mother died on this land," he said. "Dakota winter. Eli was 17. Cora's hand slowed. His father worked the south field through February trying to save what he could and buried her in March and was gone himself before the year turned. August kept looking at the field. Eli ran this land at 17 years old. Learned to do it without asking for anything from anyone, because there was no one left to ask. He turned. When he finally decided a wife, a real life, something beyond just the work, he wrote his list. Town-raised, practical, references. He wanted a woman who could survive this place. August looked at Cora steadily. He didn't write a word about love. Love is what had cost him everyone. "Why are you telling me this?" she said. "Because I have watched that boy be alone on this land for years," August said, "and I am running out of time to fix it." She looked at the flour on her hands. Then she went to find something useful to do, and August let her go. The second day she found him at the irrigation channel, working it from the west the way it had always been done, pushing the root mass toward the main channel where it would slow, catch, and block again before spring. "You need to come at it from the east," she said. He kept working. "I know this land. You know this channel the way your father dug it. That's not the same as knowing where the water wants to go. Mind yourself." She looked at him. Then she picked up the spare shovel, walked to the east bank, and drove it in, 3 strokes, clean and deliberate, exactly where the obstruction met open flow. The water shifted. Not much, but enough. She set the shovel down and walked back to the house. He stood there looking at those 3 cuts in the earth. He looked at his own work. He picked up his shovel and kept going his way, because he was not ready yet, and he knew it, and that knowledge sat in him like a stone. Mrs. Doane came that afternoon with a jar of preserved plum for August. She looked at Cora and asked questions. Where she was from? What she knew, what she could do. Cora answered. Mrs. Doane nodded through each answer in the way of someone confirming what she had already decided. At the door, leaving, she said to August, "She seems very capable. Very helpful." The door closed. Cora was at the kitchen window. Helpful. She had been hearing that word her whole life, applied to her whole life, in the tone people used for a good lamp or a reliable fence post. She smiled. It was not the smile she gave people she trusted. It was the other one, smooth and practiced. August turned from the door and saw it on her face. He saw the moment behind the expression, the place where she had already gone somewhere private. He came and sat beside her and did not speak for a while, because sometimes that was the only thing that was any use. Supper that night had a weight to it that none of the previous evenings had carried. Nobody said Thursday. But it was at the table with them as surely as the bread and the coffee, ticking somewhere underneath the sound of forks on plates. Eli did not look at her. Cora did not look at him. Even August had put away his stories and sat looking into his cup. When Cora said goodnight, she said it to the room and went to the spare room and lay down with her boots still on. She listened to the house settle around her. This was the last night this roof would feel like anything other than someone else's shelter. She knew that clearly. It was past midnight when the tightness in her chest drove her up and outside for cold air. She came to the porch for the water bucket and stopped. Out in the field a lamp was moving. She could see the shape of a man at the irrigation channel, working from the east bank. Slow, deliberate. The way a man works when he has finally stopped arguing with himself. She stepped off the porch and walked out to him. He heard her and stopped. Leaned on the shovel. She looked at the east bank, at the 3 new cuts beside her own from yesterday. She looked at him. "You're using the east side," she said. He looked at the ground. "My father spent 3 weeks digging it the other way before the winter took him. I didn't want to change his work." Felt like saying he was wrong. Cold wind came through the grass. Real cold now, with winter somewhere behind it. "He was wrong," she said, quietly without cruelty. "That doesn't change what he built." Eli looked at her. The lamplight reached just far enough. "Thursday morning," he said. "Thursday morning," she said. She went back inside. He stood at the channel for a long time after and then picked up the shovel and kept working. In the kitchen, the lamp August had left burning threw light across the yard. The old man sat at the table with the agency description he had written himself and read his own words back. Someone who will look at this land and see what it is. Someone with patience and her own opinion. Someone who doesn't need managing. He looked at those words for a long time. Then he dipped his pen, drew a single heavy line through the agency's terms, flipped the paper, and began to write. Not a letter. His hand was steady. A man who has decided a clean conscience is worth considerable trouble writes without hesitation, without looking up, without stopping until the thing is done. Webb came at dawn with the sheriff beside him and the agency contract folded in his breast pocket. He rode through the gate like a man arriving to collect something already owed. August was at the gate post with his coffee. He had been there since before the horses appeared on the road. He watched them come the way a man watches weather, without surprise, without hurry. The sheriff dismounted first. August produced a letter from his coat pocket and held it out. The sheriff read it. Turned it over. Read it again. Cora Whitfield. Contracted ranch manager. Merritt property, 30 days. Signed and dated 3 days before Webb had filed his agency paperwork. The sheriff folded the letter carefully and handed it back. He had the look of a man who had ridden out expecting a simple morning and was now recalculating his entire day. Ladies employed. Nothing to collect today, Calvert. Webb took this with a smile that did not reach his eyes. I'll contest it. This isn't finished. He looked past August toward the house once, not at a person, at a situation, and then turned his horse. Cedar Fork Road is that way, August said pleasantly, and drank his coffee. Webb left. Eli had watched all of it from the barn doorway. He crossed the yard to where August stood. August looked at the road. Then at Eli. Then he handed Eli the second cup he had brought out and forgotten to mention. Biscuits are on the stove, August said. Don't let them burn this time. He went inside. Nothing was said about the letter or what it had cost August to write it or what it meant that he had. Some things between men do not require saying. Pearl's letter arrived Wednesday by postrider. She was traveling. She would be at the Merritt Ranch by Friday. The agency apologized for the delay in processing. Eli read the letter at the kitchen table. He set it face down. Cora was at the window looking at the east field. She had been watching the irrigation channel since morning, the way you watch something you have been thinking about and have not yet decided to touch. The channel, she said. I'll get to it. The root mass has redirected again. If it sits another week, the east plot won't drink before the ground freezes. He looked at the letter face down on the table. I said I'll get to it. She said nothing more. She went to find something useful to do, which was never difficult on this land. Thursday afternoon, Eli found her at the channel. She was not making small work of it. She had driven the spare shovel into the east bank and was pulling at the root mass with both hands, boots in the mud, not asking for help or announcing she needed it. She had simply identified what the problem was and begun. He stood at the bank watching her for a moment. Then he went to the barn and came back with the long-handled fork and his own pair of work gloves. He drove the fork into the west bank where the root mass had anchored and pulled. She worked the east side. The obstruction had been building for 2 seasons and it did not come easily. It came in pieces, slowly, with the particular resistance of something that has had time to establish itself. Neither of them spoke. The mud was cold and the work was real, and there was nothing to say that the work wasn't already saying. Then the mass broke. Not gradually, all at once. The way blocked things release when you have finally found the right point. The water pushed through clean and fast, spreading into the east plot the way it had always been meant to, finding the grade Cora had read the first day she walked down that road. They stood on the banks looking at it. Mud to the knee, both of them. The water ran cold and clear and the field began drinking. August appeared at the field's edge. He looked at the channel. He looked at the two of them standing on opposite banks covered in mud with the water moving clean between them. He set 2 cups of coffee on the fence post without a word, turned, and walked back toward the house. "August," Eli called. "Busy," August said without turning around. Eli looked at the coffee cups. He picked one up and held the other across the channel. Cora took it. They drank and watched the water move and did not manufacture conversation because none was needed. Pearl arrived Friday by hired wagon. She stepped into the yard and she was everything Eli had written on his list: composed, gracious, dark-haired, with the ease of a woman who had grown up understanding how rooms worked. She was genuinely lovely, and the story would have been simpler if she had not been. August greeted her warmly because she had done nothing wrong, and he was not a man who punished people for the situation they walked into. Eli showed her the house. He pulled out her chair at supper. He answered her questions and was everything a courteous man should be, which he was, which was the problem. Cora passed the bread when it was needed. She cleared the plates when supper was done. She excused herself early, mending, she said, and went to the spare room and sat on the edge of the bed and looked at her hands and did the arithmetic she had been avoiding since the wagon came down the road. She was useful here. She was not chosen here. She had been useful her whole life. She knew exactly where that road ended because she had walked it before, and it ended the same way every time. August watched Eli watch Cora leave the room. He refilled Eli's coffee without asking and said nothing, which was one of August's more effective tools. The next 2 evenings had the particular quiet of something not yet decided. Saturday, Pearl came to the kitchen before supper meaning to help. She was willing and genuinely kind about it. She looked at the shelves and the Dutch oven and the order of things on the counter, and none of it was familiar to her. Not wrong, just not her language. She reached for the salt where it would have been in a town kitchen. It was not there. She reached for the bread tin. Also not there. Cora moved through the kitchen around her, unhurried, unannounced, shifting the tin within reach, setting the salt where Pearl's hand was already going, filling the gap before Pearl had to ask where to look. Not correcting. Not managing. Just quietly making sure Pearl never had to feel the kitchen refusing her. Pearl noticed. She said nothing. But she watched Cora's hands the way you watch someone who makes a hard thing look like it requires no effort at all. Sunday morning Eli walked Pearl out to the barn to show her the east field and the channel work. She listened carefully. She asked the right questions. She looked at the grade of the land and the way the water was moving and said it was impressive, which it was, and she meant it. But she looked at it the way a person looks at someone else's country, with genuine appreciation and no instinct for it. No pull. She did not see what Cora had seen standing at the junction road that first morning. She did not feel the field the way Cora felt it, like something that needed her specifically, like something she had been reading her whole life without knowing it had a name. Eli saw that. He did not say anything about it. He walked Pearl back to the house and was everything a courteous man should be, which he was, which was still the problem. The church social was August's idea. He announced it at breakfast Friday morning as though it had always been scheduled. The town gathered in the way of small communities that understand a social is not optional. Pearl moved through the room the way some people move through rooms, not reaching for attention, simply receiving it because it came naturally. Women brought her into conversations. Men tipped their hats. Someone's daughter presented her with late-season flowers from a kitchen garden, and Pearl received them with a warmth that was entirely genuine. Cora refilled the coffee table, helped Mrs. Doan with the food arrangement, found the elderly widow Hartley's shawl under the third bench from the back where she had left it and forgotten. When the widow pressed her hand and said she was an absolute treasure, Cora smiled the smile she kept for these occasions and said it was nothing. Later she found the back door had swollen in the cold and would not latch properly, leaving a draft cutting across the far end of the room where the older women were sitting. She found the wooden wedge by the door frame, worked it into place in 2 minutes, tested it, and moved on before anyone knew there had been a problem. One of the older women pulled her shawl tighter and looked around for the source of warmth, finding nothing to explain it. Cora was already back at the coffee table. At the end of the evening, a kind woman whose name Cora would not remember took her hand and said with full sincerity, "You are such a help tonight. I don't know what this gathering would do without you. Not, you look lovely. Not, we are so glad you're here. Just, such a help." Cora smiled. She had been smiling that smile since she was 19 years old. It cost her nothing anymore. That was the part that should have been a relief and wasn't. On the wagon home, Pearl sat beside Eli on the bench. Cora sat in the back. The October dark had come down fully over the Dakota grass, and the stars were out in a way that happens only when the air has gone genuinely cold. Cora had not brought a coat heavy enough. In the back of the wagon, Eli felt it before he saw it. The way she pulled her arms in slightly, not complaining, not asking, simply managing the cold the way she managed everything. He cleared his throat once, low, the particular sound August had learned over 30 years meant pay attention to something I cannot say out loud. August turned. He looked at Cora. He looked at Eli's hands on the reins with Pearl beside him on the bench. He understood the entire geometry of it in 1 second. He took off his coat and put it around Cora's shoulders without ceremony. She turned to look at him. He was already looking at the road ahead. "Stars are something tonight," he said, to nobody in particular. On the front bench, Eli's hands tightened once on the reins. He did not turn around. He did not speak. He sat with what he had just done, which was ask his 71-year-old grandfather to give a woman his coat because he could not give her his own, and he felt the full weight of it the entire ride home. Pearl was at breakfast. Cora was not. August found her in the spare room. The bag was on the floor, not packed, just out. The way a bag sits when a woman has made her decision but is giving herself one last hour to change it. He sat in the chair by the window. He did not argue. He did not comfort. He looked at her the way he had looked at people in difficult moments for 71 years, without flinching and without rushing. "One question," he said. "Then I'll leave you alone." She waited. "Is it because you don't think he sees you? Or because you're afraid of what happens if he does?" She did not answer. August nodded once, slowly, the way a man nods when silence has told him what he needed to know. He stood. "That coat last night," he said. "It wasn't mine to give." He left before she could find words for what that meant. Pearl found her in the kitchen an hour later. She sat down at the table without making an occasion of it. "You fixed the shelf bracket?" Pearl said. "First day." Cora said nothing. "When he showed me the house, he stopped at that shelf in the kitchen. Just looked at it." Pearl folded her hands on the table. Didn't say a word. He didn't have to. Cora set down what she was holding. "I'm not angry with you." "You should be," Cora said. "Quiet. Not mean." "No," Pearl said. "I really shouldn't." She stood. "I came here looking for a life. I think I came to the wrong ranch." She said it plainly, the way honest women state true things, without self-pity, without performance. She went back to her room. That afternoon Pearl found Eli at the east fence looking at the channel. She stood beside him. She looked at the water running clean through the grate. "She showed you this," Pearl said. Eli said nothing. "Eli." Her voice was not unkind. "You look at her the way my father looks at my mother after 30 years. The pause. "You do not look at me that way. You look at me like a decent man honoring something he ordered and already wishes he hadn't." The water moved through the channel. A meadowlark called once from somewhere on the fence line. "I'm taking the morning stage to Billings," Pearl said. "My decision. You don't owe me anything." She turned to go. Stopped once without turning back. "Don't let her leave because you couldn't say the thing. That would be a waste of a good woman." She packed that evening without drama because she had too much self-respect to perform a grief she did not feel, and she was on the morning stage before breakfast. Cora came to the kitchen in the afternoon with her bag packed. August rose from his chair when he heard her on the stairs. He looked at the bag. He looked at her face. He did not argue because he understood she was not leaving from defeat. She was leaving because staying and watching from the edges of a life that almost became hers was more than she was willing to bear. She had done that before. She knew the cost. "Cedar Fork Junction," she said. "Not Webb. I'll arrange my own passage from there." He looked at her for a long time. "You have never once in your life been anyone's first choice," he said. She looked at him. "You should have been," he said. "Every time. From the very beginning." She picked up her bag. She walked through the door and down the porch steps and up the road without looking back. August watched her until the road turned and she was gone. Then he sat down heavily in his chair. He looked at the shelf bracket she had fixed that first morning. He looked at Eli's coffee cup on the table. She had set it at his place this morning out of pure habit, the same as every morning, even today, even with her bag packed and her mind made up. He left it there. He did not touch it. The kitchen was very quiet. August had been in quiet kitchens before. He had sat in this one the winter Eli's mother died, and again the spring his son followed her, and he knew the difference between a quiet that was just silence and a quiet that was absence. This was absence. The kind a person leaves behind when they have been filling space without knowing it. He looked at the spare room door. Open now. He had watched her close it carefully every night for 2 weeks, the way she did everything without asking anyone to notice. He was 71 years old. He had set things in motion and he could not take them back and he did not want to. But wanting the right ending did not protect you from the cost of getting there. Then he picked up his coffee, went to the porch, and waited for the sound of hoofbeats from the far field. Eli came in from the far field at dusk. Spare room door open. Empty. He stood in the kitchen doorway. He looked at the bracket. He looked at the coffee cup she had set at his place one last time without thinking about it, cold now, already cold, placed there by a woman who had been taking care of other people her whole life and had done it this morning without even deciding to. He stood there and understood with his whole chest what he had understood in his head for days. He went to the porch. August was in his chair. "Which road?" Eli said. "Cedar Fork Junction. 2 hours. North Cut." Eli went to the barn without another word. August sat in the dark and listened to the hoofbeats cross the yard and fade into the Dakota grass. He picked up his coffee. It had gone cold while he waited. He drank it anyway. "About time," he said, to the field and the stars and nobody in particular. The North Cut was harder in the dark, low ground, fence lines he knew by memory rather than sight, the cold coming off the grass in waves. He pushed the horse and the horse gave him what he asked for. He did not rehearse anything. He had spent 35 years arriving at things slowly and there was nothing slow left in him tonight. Cora was at the junction post when he rode in, bag at her feet. The stage did not come until mid-morning and she had hours still and nowhere yet to spend them. The early light was coming across the Dakota flat, gold and thin, the same light that had been on the grass the morning she walked down the road and looked at this land before she touched it. Webb's buggy was there. He had seen her walking the road and pulled over with the patient pleasantness of a man who had been waiting for this moment since Thursday. He was offering her passage, a large house, a settled arrangement. He made reasonable sound almost like kindness, which was something he had practiced. Eli rode in. Webb straightened. Eli stepped down from his horse. He looked at Webb once, with the same quiet he had used at the barn door on the first night. Already finished, just informing. Drive on, Calvert. Webb looked between them. He did his accounting. He drove on, because he was a practical man and what he saw in Eli's face was not a conversation he wanted to have. Eli stood in front of her. She was looking at him the way she looked at everything, reading it before she spoke. You came because August told you which road, she said. August told me which road, Eli said. I was already riding. She looked at the bag at her feet. He took one step closer. Not reaching. Just present. The morning we cleared the channel, you were already there before first light. Not for me to see. Just because it needed doing. He looked at her. I went back inside and saw the coffee cup you'd set at my place. Same as every morning. Even that morning. He stopped. I understood then that I was about to become another man who took what you gave and let you walk away. I am not going to be that man. The pause. He was not built for speeches and he was out of everything now except the truest thing. You came here by mistake. Every morning since, this place has felt like what it was always supposed to be, not because of the channel or the south row or the bracket on the shelf, but because of you. Not the capable one. Not the useful one. He held her gaze. I need you. Not what you can do. You. Nobody had ever said that to her. She had been capable her whole life and helpful her whole life, and not once had anyone set all of that aside and said simply, just you. Her throat moved. She did not pick up the bag yet. She had braced herself against disappointment so many times and for so long that her body did not know immediately what to do with the absence of it. She stood in the cold Dakota light and felt something she could not name slowly release its hold. Not all at once, the way blocked things sometimes do, but quietly, the way a held breath finally lets go when a person realizes they no longer need to hold it. Eli did not move. He did not reach for her. He simply stayed where he was and let her have the moment, because he was a man who understood that some things cannot be rushed, and this was one of them. The light came gold across the grass. She picked up her bag. She turned back toward the ranch road. He fell into step beside her and they walked in silence because there was nothing left that needed saying and the Dakota light was coming gold across the grass and it was enough. It was more than enough. 10 years on. Same October light. Same wide sky. Their daughter came down the road the way Cora had come down it once. Unhurried, reading the land as she walked, not missing anything. She reached Eli at the east fence and looked at the south row without being asked. That needs to come in before frost, she said. Eli looked across the yard to the porch. Cora was watching them. Her eyes went to the empty chair first, August's chair, still in its place, 3 years empty now. She had not moved it. She would not move it. Then her eyes found Eli's across the distance and something passed between them that had no name and had never needed one. The ranch had his fingerprints everywhere. The letter he filed that Thursday morning. The coat he gave on a cold wagon ride home. The description he wrote by lamplight and trusted to find its way. It found its way. And if you have been waiting for yours, it is still coming.